Part 44. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 431. Chapter 431 Secret Door. Xiaoling's heart skipped a beat and she hurriedly walked out. "Call me." On the phone, it was Chu Chen's voice. "Miss Ye, do you know where the boss is now? I have something very important to find him, but I can't contact him. I've searched the office and all possible places. No one was there. I asked many people but they didn't know where the boss was." Xiaoling frowned. In fact, she didn't know where he was. She hadn't seen him since he turned around and left the bedroom last night. Worried that something might happen to him, Xiaoling said to Chu Chen, "Don't hang up the phone." Hurrying to another phone, he dialed Pei Xian's mobile phone. There was an exclusive number between them, and he said that it would be open for her at all times. The bell rang. It was Perfect Dream, the song Xiaoling composed for him back then. However, after ringing for a long time, no one answered. Xiaoling panicked. Such a situation had never happened before. Although she hated him in her heart, after spending more than 10 years together day and night, when something happened to him, she couldn't control herself from worrying about him. What happened to Pei Xian? Did something happen? He quickly called Zhou's mother and asked her if she knew where Pei Xian had gone. But Zhou's mother didn't know either. She also said that she had searched the house and found no one. For a moment, Xiaoling was confused and rushed to Chu Chen's phone. "I can't find him." "Don't worry," Chu Chen said calmly, "think about where else he will go." "I don't know." Xiaoling said, confused and a little panicked, eagerly recalling the places he usually likes to go to. There is a bamboo forest villa on the outskirts of the city, a fooning club in the north of the city, Moonlight Beach, Hung Club, etc. No dojo. She reported many place names one after another. Unexpectedly, Chu Chen said that she had searched them all, and even found Pei Xian in a few places she didn't know about. This person seemed to have disappeared out of thin air. Xiaoling became even more panicked and asked Chu Chen in confusion, "What should I do? The boss's mobile phone should have GPS tracking, but I don't have permission, and I can't do this without the boss's permission. I wonder if you can track it here." "How can I track it? I don't even have a mobile phone." "He didn't tell me the password." She was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot. "How about calling the police? The police will definitely find a way to find him." "Don't." Chu Chen stopped her. "You don't know how much of a shock this incident will cause. It will cause an uproar in the entire entertainment industry, no, the entire business world. So what? I just want him to be safe. Miss Ye, the emperor is the lifeblood of the boss. It took him so many years to finally control everything. There are still many people in the Pei family lurking and watching. We must not give our opponents an opportunity just because we lose contact for a while. Yeah, miss, the top priority is to find the boss as soon as possible." Xiaoling no longer insists on going to the police. Chu Chen was right. The emperor was Pei Xian's lifeblood and had been the focus of his life's efforts. Even if he had to choose between her and the emperor, he would probably choose the emperor without hesitation. How could Xiaoling go to the police to expose the disappearance and cause trouble for him under such circumstances? "Okay, let's not call the police for now," she said. "Think about what else you can do. If it really doesn't work, we can only use GPS positioning," Chu Chen said. "If we wait another day, if we still can't contact you, I'll have someone crack the password." Xiaoling was angry. "Why do you have to wait another day?" Chu Chen smiled bitterly. "You know, I don't have the authority. If it weren't for a major and extremely critical incident, and I cracked his password without authorization, Miss Ye, the boss would be furious." "I don't care, you go now," Xiaoling yelled at him. "I'll take care of anything. Go quickly." He hesitated, "But are you afraid that I won't be able to bear it?" she said quickly as her rationality came back to her mind a little, you saw how good he was to me, no less than Xiaoling back then. Are you surprised? Back then he and Xiaoling, I know what happened to Ling, and I know you know it too. Do you think Pei Ziyan would blame you if Xiaoling were here to ask you to crack the code? Yes, I understand, Chu Chen said. She took a breath and hung up the phone. His back slid down against the wall and he sat limply on the ground. Pei Ziyan, where have you been? Why don't you answer the phone? She was very anxious and asked Zhou's mother to bring another phone. She kept calling his number, but it still rang and no one answered. She repeated it mechanically and kept typing. The whole night passed and dawn came. Chu Chen's call came in, "Ms. Yeah, the password has been cracked, and the GPS shows that the boss's mobile phone is at home." "Impossible, I'm at home right now. I've been on the phone all night and haven't heard the phone ring." Xiaoling's voice was hoarse after staying up all night. Chu Chen said, "The positioning is correct. Please look for it again." She stood up unsteadily, walking unsteadily, and searched from room to room, but still found nothing. "Pei Ziyan, where are you?" Chu Chen's call came in again. "Have you searched every room? Think about it again. Is there anything you missed?" How could there be any omissions? This is a house that she designed and supervised. Why, wait, she remembered that when she went to the study room before, she found that the position of a bookcase was wrong. It was not as she originally designed it. I didn't have time to say anything to Chu Chen, so I put down the phone and ran towards the study like the wind. In the study room, the bookcase was indeed in the wrong position. It was bulky behind the high-backed chair. Xiaoling pushed it hard. The bookcase was very heavy and could not be pushed. She glanced back and forth around the area, and suddenly she saw a small raised decorative sculpture. Somehow, her hand pressed on the sculpture. The bookcase slowly moved away, revealing a secret door. She didn't understand why Pei Ziyan added a secret door in this place. The security measures in his study are very complete, and all confidential documents about the emperor will never be stolen. Doesn't he trust her plan? Or is there something more important to protect? She was puzzled and pushed open the secret door. Behind the secret door is a deep, narrow, spiraling downward staircase. The air is dry and clean, exuding the faint fragrance of withered petals. There are a few lights on the walls on both sides of the stairs. The light is a quiet and soft warm yellow, just like the old world that has passed away in memories. Xiaoling held onto the wall and protected her lower abdomen with her other hand, carefully going down. She didn't know what would be at the end, she just hoped that no matter what it was, there would be Pei Ziyan waiting for her there. Once, she wanted to escape from him so much, but when he disappeared, it turned out that she was so worried. Finally, it's the end. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 432. Chapter 432 Butterfly Embers. A small door opens, revealing a clean and bright room. It was probably built in a basement with no windows. However, everything was in order. There were many sandalwood cabinets around the walls and all-color glass sliding doors. Xiaoling glanced around, quietly approached one of the cupboards, and looked inside through the glass. What I saw were neatly arranged inside were CDs, all about her previous life. In her previous life, she followed him from the age of 12 until her death at the age of 28. During this period, all the singles and albums, including the works from the trainee period, unpublished fragments, and various versions, were clearly visible. There are also various video interviews, advertisements, award ceremonies, etc. Xiaoling casually pulled out a piece of paper, and unexpectedly, a small note fell from it. She picked it up and saw it written in familiar handwriting. Xiaoling, that day was the second time you went to receive the Best Female Singer award. You were not happy about having to drive a long distance, So you pestered me early in the morning and asked me to send you off. I had an important meeting and couldn't leave. After coaxing you for a long time, you reluctantly walked out. When attending the award ceremony, you always had an unfriendly face. The news says you are aloof, but I am the only one who knows that you want me to accompany you. If God can give me another chance, I will definitely put aside all my affairs to accompany you. The signature was signed 2 years ago, not long after she fell from the stage and died. Xiaoling could not have imagined that she would see this here today. Her plain white hands began to tremble uncontrollably, and she could hardly hold the note steady. She put it down hastily and turned to other discs. Each disc has a small note like this. You are sick, but you still insist on shooting the MV. If I don't agree, you have a big fight with me. After arguing and arguing, the person became energetic, drank the very bitter Chinese medicine in one breath, and stormed out of the door in a menacing manner. Mother Joe is very worried that I will be angry, but she doesn't know that I really like to see you staring at me. Your eyes are so bright, just like when you sing about the sun in this MV. Xiaoling, you bloom in my life, you are my light. While making a snowman, you had a sudden inspiration and sang a short improvised song. It sounds great. You said you wanted to compose it into a complete piece, but then you seemed to have forgotten about it and never mentioned it again. Fortunately, I recorded it. I like every song you sing. Your songs are my only sounds of nature. There are many, many more. Xiaoling's hands shook even more. She went through the cabinets one by one. In addition to the discs, there were also all the newspapers and magazines that had published news about her, the various gifts she had given him, and many old things. She found a Santa hat. Xiaoling, you are 13 years old and you go to the set happily. Come on, Emperor Pictures is filming a movie, it's almost Christmas, and every cast member can receive a Santa hat. You squeezed out a small supporting role and got the little princess role with only one line. After filming, the on-site coordinator, your uncle Zaida, said to me, "This is not a little princess, she is simply a little ancestor." If I had known that this little ancestor wanted that hat to give to you, my eldest brother, I immediately gave it to you without saying anything. As soon as the dozen comes to your house. But I like this hat very much. This is the first gift you gave me. There is another photo, slightly yellowed with age. While taking a nap, you secretly drew a beard on my face. Later, during the afternoon meeting, all the executives had strange expressions on their faces, wanting to laugh but not daring to. I didn't find out until my secretary reminded me. After the meeting, I returned to the office. You, the little troublemaker, were still sleeping soundly on the sofa. I looked at you for a while, and then I added a beard on your face with my pen. It was very cute, like a kitten. I couldn't help but take pictures and collect them. You still don't know about them. In this photo, there are mottled marks, which look like dried tears. Xiaoling also wanted to cry. She opened the last cabinet and found boxes of various sizes inside. The boxes contain things she had never seen before. There is a withered rose in a box. Xiaoling, you have been dead for 1 month and 3 days. I always feel that you are still with me. When I passed by the flower shop today, I turned around and asked you what flowers you wanted. The driver was horrified. Only then did I remember that you had left me and gone to a place I couldn't reach. My butterfly has flown away forever. There is also a box containing a real estate certificate. 1 year and 3 months after your death, the decoration of Jinghu Villa was completed. In the past, you always said that I was boring and even giving gifts was not innovative. Maybe, in your eyes, I am just a boring person, but do you know? I will give you the most reliable material guarantee. Xiaoling, you are my priceless treasure. With me here, you never have to worry about the trivial matters of life, as long as you can live freely in your dreams. Xiaoling, the villa is decorated. I hope you can happily accept the gifts like before and then laugh at me for being boring. After Xiaoling read the records written with a fountain pen, she could no longer hold the object in her hand. With a clang, the box fell to the ground. The sound echoed in the basement, then became fainter and dispersed. When silence enveloped her again, she heard very light music, like coming from a music box, which was the piano music of Perfect Dream that she composed many years ago. She followed the music and found another secret door in an inconspicuous corner, ajar. She pushed open and walked in. Then she saw Pei Zion sitting in a sofa chair. In front of him was a small altar. The base of an unknown black material was covered with cinnabar and talismans. Countless red lines were dotted and intertwined into complex patterns. In the center of the red line, surrounded by several old things, there is a pendant that she often wears, a strand of hair that is very carefully, and a music box. The sound of music came from the music box. She recognized that music box. When her Perfect Dream won the international award, the company produced this commemorative music box. In the center, there is a lifelike little figure of Xiaoling dancing in a relaxed posture, with eyes and eyebrows full of charm. This music box sold like crazy, even Pei Zion collected one and placed it on his desk in his study. No wonder, when she walked into his study before, she always felt that something was missing. It turned out that he had moved it here. Xiaoling looked at the red thread altar with mixed feelings in her heart. What kind of altar is this? Was he like Lei, because he was too nervous about her, so he did something with metaphysics? In the sofa chair, Pei Zion raised his head, looking haggard. He seemed not to have expected Xiaoling to appear here, and looked at her in surprise. Xiaoling also turned her gaze back to him. It was great that he was fine. While he breathed a sigh of relief, a burst of anger surged into his heart. Pei Zion, why didn't you answer my call? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 433. Chapter 433 Cruise Party. Pei Zion was slightly startled. So, she would also care about him? I feel like I'm overthinking it again. With Xiaoling's temper, I'm afraid she's spoiled. Her unhappiness is purely because she wasn't coaxed in time. His eyes passed over her, looking at the crisscrossing red lines on the altar. After her death, he had a doubtful attitude and asked someone to set up this altar to summon her soul, hoping that she would return to him. When he missed her, Pei Zion would sit here and think countless times that if she could come back, no matter how angry she was with him, he would be happy with it. But when she really stared at him, he only felt sad. You are talking, Xiaoling was very angry, do you know how long I have been looking for you? Will you still care about me? There was a touch of bitterness in his voice, as well as an imperceptible hint of hope. But Xiaoling didn't notice the glimmer of hope, and was only hurt by the distrust and sarcasm in his words. Her anger rose, angry and aggrieved. Okay, very good, Pei Zion, I shouldn't have come to you at all, you deserve to be left here to fend for yourself. She said, turned around and walked out. Pei Zion chased after her and hugged her from behind. Xiaoling, don't go. Let me go. Xiaoling was extremely angry. Pei Zion said nothing and refused to let go. On the battlefield of love, the person who loves the most is always the first to admit defeat. I was wrong, don't leave. His husky voice made her heart soften suddenly. Looking around, there are news clippings, CDs, and old things from her past everywhere. How much time and effort did this man spend to collect them one by one? Xiaoling wanted to tell herself not to be deceived by the hypocrisy of the beast behind her, but she couldn't break away from him, let alone abandon him. She couldn't put up a cold attitude to face the subdued him. He was such a proud person. How desperate was he forced to do before he admitted his mistake? Her nose was a little sore, both for him and for herself. He held her body tightly, as if she wanted to rub her into his chest. Xiaoling was in a little pain from being strangled and couldn't help but say, "Let go of me, I won't leave. Don't lie to me." She was angry and wanted to laugh at the same time. "Why did I lie to you? Pei Xian, where can I go? You have imprisoned me in a cage for a long time. My whole being is yours. Why are you worried?" Her voice gradually became sad. Has ended her relationship with Li Lei, and in the future, she will really have to spend her remaining days in Pei Xian's cage. Pei Xian pulled her body over and said, "Xiaoling, don't get involved with others anymore. Let's live a good life." "Who else can I get entangled with?" she said softly, trying not to recall Li Lei's lonely back under the street lights that night. "I will stay by your side safely and raise the child." This is the first time she has given him such a promise. Pei Xian was ecstatic and hugged her tightly again. Maybe it was the whole basement of old things and his submissive attitude that touched Xiaoling's heart. After that day, she stopped being sarcastic towards Pei Xian. But she still hated him in her heart. When she saw his face, she remembered that it was this hateful man who separated her from her beloved and separated their family of 3. She didn't want to see him, so she often hid in the recording studio and worked night shifts on the pretext of being busy at work. Pei Xian would bring food to see her, sit behind the huge soundproof glass wall, and quietly watch her singing. She would pretend not to notice, sing to herself, and deliberately re-record over and over again to stall for time, and he would wait patiently. Several times, I rested my head on the sofa and fell asleep unconsciously. Although she was angry with him, she was still worried that he would catch a cold, so she couldn't help but come out and cover him with a coat. She cursed herself in her heart, "Xiaoling, you are hopeless. It would be better if you just let him freeze to death, and you can return to Li Lei without any scruples." However, while scolding, I still went to take care of him. Pei Xian was a very light sleeper, and would often wake up when he noticed any movement, and when he saw her, he would smile tenderly. Xiaoling was afraid that he would not sleep well and was worried about the child in her belly, so she later stopped recording in the studio until very late. The child is now 3 months old, and her lower abdomen is not very visible yet. It is still flat and cannot be seen even if she wears close-fitting clothes. She was a little worried, would the child be too thin? Pei Xian said that her worries were unfounded, and comforted her by saying that it was normal for a 2-month-old child to not show signs of pregnancy. She smiled bitterly, fearing that he would find out the month of the baby, and did not dare to go for pregnancy tests too frequently, so she could only keep these worries in her heart. Even though Joe's mother comforted her, saying that the timing of showing pregnancy varies from person to person, and some women's belly won't swell until they are 4 or 5 months old, but Xiaoling was still worried. Pei Xian was afraid that she would suffer from prenatal depression, so he took time to take her out to play, choosing various tourist attractions and activities that she liked to participate in her previous life. He said, "Xiaoling, you need to relax more." Xiaoling was also worried that her emotions would have a negative impact on the fetus, so she cooperated with Pei Xian to go out for a walk. This day, they went to a cruise party. The party was of a very high standard, and the invitees were all celebrities in the business circle and bigwigs from all walks of life. Even among such a group of wealthy businessmen, Pei Xian is still outstanding and is the focus of everyone's attention. He was wearing a suit and leather tie, and had an extraordinary demeanor. He accompanied Xiaoling to the cafeteria to eat a few snacks, and was surrounded by people chatting. Xiaoling was impatient to socialize, so she withdrew unobtrusively and went to the deck outside to breathe fresh air. The stars in the sea at night are shining and the sea breeze is blowing, which is intoxicating. On the deck, a pair of men and women were talking and laughing, wearing fragrant clothes and shadows on their temples. I don't know if they were sincere or just making fun of themselves. She stood in an inconspicuous dark place for a while. Suddenly, she heard someone shouting, "Xiaoling, Xiaoling." Strange, how come anyone here knows her? She looked back and saw that it was Jin Yifei, wearing a fancy silk shirt and holding a sparkling cocktail in his hand, standing behind her with a smile. He seemed very happy to see Xiaoling, leaning side by side on the railing with her. "I really didn't expect to see you here. Who did you come with?" Pei Xian. She had nothing to hide. As an ordinary female star, she couldn't attend a party of this size. She took a look at Pei Xian's invitation letter. The invitee must have a net worth of at least 1 billion, including US dollars. She didn't have that much money to think about with her toes, so she could only be brought into the scene by someone. Hearing what she said, he was a little surprised. "Okay, Pei Xian rarely brings people with him." Then he smiled again, "But it's no wonder, you are pregnant with his baby now, and your status is naturally different. Who are you taking?" Xiaoling just smiled politely. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 434. Chapter 434. Marketable but priceless. She knew that Pei Xian really didn't like to bring people to social occasions. In the past 2 years, he has accepted so many female companions, but none of them can show up with him on big occasions. When he reaches his status, there are actually many activities that require companionship. In his previous life, she was just his underground lover. She was shady and rarely went with him. However, she was jealous and did not allow him to bring others with him. Therefore, he is a majestic business giant and the head of an emperor, and he actually brings most of his secretaries when he attends social events. His secretary is a woman, which makes Xiaoling feel relieved. Later, Xiaoling watched the interview, and a fashion and luxury magazine interviewed Wang Jingguan and talked about her prospective fiancé. Wang Jingguan said with a smile, "I have liked him for a long time. I first met him at several social occasions. For others, changing female companions is like changing clothes, but he is very clean and self-contained, which makes people feel at ease." At that time, Xiaoling felt that she had dug a hole for herself to jump into. Thinking about the past, she felt a little sad. Jin Yifei observed the words and asked, "What, you're not happy?" He teased her again, "Why are you dissatisfied with being brought in by Pei Xian? Xiaoling, you should be lucky. Do you know how most of the little female stars here got here?" He raised his chin and nodded not far away. She followed his line of sight and saw under the starry sky, on the deck, next to the shining champagne tower, a plump man was holding a slim woman in his arms, moving his hands and feet without any scruples. "That woman looks familiar, she is the heroine of the 13th letter," Jin Yifei said, "has good acting skills, but it's a pity that she has no background and has never been popular. I had to spend a lot of money to hire a middleman to come here to find a backer and try my luck." Xiaoling looked away and said in a very calm tone, "That was the path she chose in this regard. She is not a very sympathetic person. Everyone has to pay the price for their own desires, just like she wants to keep her heart. If he has a baby, he has to marry Pei Xian. From a certain point of view, it is also selling himself out in disguise." Jin Yifei said, "Do you think she wants to be like this? Her acting skills are so solid, but she is still unknown after 5 or 6 years of debut. Do you know what 5 or 6 years of youth means in this industry?" Without waiting for her to answer, he continued talking on his own, "This is not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing is that you are beautiful, not popular, and have no background. All you can face is endless harassment. Xiaoling, do you think she never persisted? She was as clean and stubborn as you when she first debuted." Jin Yifei looked at her and smiled, "I wanted to date her at that time, but she sternly rejected me. Of course, She didn't get the role in my movie. Oh, by the way, that movie was called Glass Blade. It was the one that became a hit at the box office and won many awards. Xiaoling glanced at him. How dare you say that? After all, you are also one of the perpetrators. Jin Yifei chuckled. The perpetrator? Ha ha ha, life is short, and it is right to enjoy yourself in time. Xiaoling, what do you think I am, a savior? Saving the entertainment industry by myself? Look, she was even if he didn't follow me, he would still follow someone else. Xiaoling was silent. She had long known that there were many dark sides in this circle, but she had never experienced it personally. She hadn't seen Letter 13 either, but she had worked with Jin Yifei and knew his vision and level. He said that the actress had good acting skills, so she must be very good. Even if she doesn't want to obey you, can't you give her a chance? I thought you would consider the actor's quality when choosing roles, Xiaoling said. Jin Yifei laughed again. Of course I consider the standard, otherwise how could I have made so many films with top box office reviews? But Xiaoling, you have to know, he turned around, there are so many people in the world who work hard. There are a lot of people who work hard and are willing to be unspoken. Why should I leave them alone and use her? Then you used me back then. You were in an emergency at that time, and you really couldn't find anyone. He waved his hand nonchalantly and said, besides, I can't afford to offend Boss Li. Look, you are also a person with a backer. If it weren't for Boss Li, for my sake, even if I ask you to act, I will definitely give you some trouble, do you understand? Xiaoling was a little dumbfounded when she heard it. It turned out that it was so complicated and tortuous. Not far away, the actress was still having with the plump man. She looked very involved, coquettishly feeding the man drinks. Her eyes were passionate and intoxicated, like a little girl who was deeply in love and couldn't extricate herself. Jin Yifei leisurely admired her acting skills, and commented from time to time, she's very hard-working. This performance, Tisk, is just like a movie queen. You said that if she obeyed me, how could she end up like this, having to serve a perverted old man? Looking at the pair, Xiaoling felt a little bored. She turned her head and called the waiter holding a tray to order a cocktail. Jin Yifei was very excited. I want it too, he stretched out his hand to get the wine. Xiaoling turned slightly to the side, retracted the hand holding the goblet, and stepped aside. He suddenly stared at her wrist. Before she could react, he had taken the cocktail glass from her hand and handed it back to the waiter. This bracelet of yours. Xiaoling lowered her head and saw the bracelet on her hand. It was the one given by Pei Ziyan a few days ago. It contained 18 brilliant and dazzling colored diamonds, inlaid into extremely gorgeous iris flowers. She didn't want to wear it because it was too ostentatious, but Pei Ziyan insisted. He said, if someone with no eyes comes to provoke you, you have to weigh yourself. Xiaoling said, where can there be any blind person? The whole world knows that I am pregnant with your child. Pei Ziyan still insisted. He couldn't guarantee that the business leaders could recognize the face of a female star. If they didn't find out whose woman she was, wouldn't it be in trouble? But he can 100% guarantee that no matter how bad the vision of these big guys here is, they will not miss an expensive and rare diamond bracelet. They will know how noble and favored she is. Xiaoling didn't know how much this bracelet was worth, but it looked very extraordinary at first glance. As expected, Jin Yifei's face changed slightly. A top-quality purple diamond of more than 5 carats, and a complete set of blue diamonds, plus this design, this cut. Xiaoling, I'm afraid you won't be able to hold on to this bracelet for 200 million yuan. She was shocked. She had expected it to be expensive, but she didn't expect it to be so expensive. He raised his wrist, looked at the bracelet over and over, and asked Jin Yifei uncertainly, are you kidding? TCH, you don't believe my vision, Jin Yifei looked disdainful. Do you know the international price of such a large and pure purple red diamond? Well, I don't know either, this thing is simply marketable but priceless. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 435. Chapter 435 You don't understand. Jin Yifei grabbed her wrist and looked at it again and again. After a long time, he reluctantly let go and asked gossiping, "Did Pei Xian give it to you?" Xiaoling carefully covered the bracelet with the fringed hem of the silk shawl and did not answer. Jin Yifei shrugged. "Ask what's wrong, stingy," he added, "it must have been given by him. Others can't afford it. And if you follow him now, you won't wear things given by others. He is quite generous. This I'm not even married yet, so I'm willing to spend such a huge amount of money." Xiaoling suddenly announced the news of her pregnancy, which made Pei Xian very angry, but this did not prevent him from taking remedial measures. The emperor held a huge media conference, announcing that they would get their marriage certificate on Chinese Valentine's Day, and said, after the child is born and her body recovers, the wedding will be held. This is recognition of her status as Pei's future wife. Although there are many different voices within the Pei family, due to Pei Xian's intimidation, no one dares to say anything nonsense in public. As a result, her wedding date became known to everyone. Xiaoling, however, was not happy and did not answer the call. She just lowered her head and drank. Jin Yifei stayed with her and stayed quiet. After a while, he couldn't help himself and asked, "What about Boss Li? He was dumped after falling out of love." Xiaoling still said nothing and took another glass of wine from the passing waiter. The colorful cocktails reflect the bright starlight and look as beautiful as a dreamlike bubble. She raised her head and drank it. The hot taste spread from her stomach to her limbs, spicy and bitter. Jin Yifei took the wine glass from her hand. "Hey, you can't drink anymore, you're pregnant." She was a little drunk and looked at him with a pair of flowing eyes. "You are good at taking care of others. Why, is there a pregnant woman at home?" "Bah, bah, 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 bah." Jin Yifei hurriedly jumped. "Master, I'm not married yet, don't ruin my reputation." As he said that, he glanced around nervously, for fear of being overheard by some pretty beauty. "Go." Xiaoling burst into laughter and felt much better. "Director Jin, who has lived among thousands of flowers, do you still have a reputation?" You, how are you talking?" Jin Yifei feigned anger and stared at her. For a moment, he couldn't stand it anymore and laughed. Okay, but no matter how bad I am, I don't dare to. It's bigger than any girl's belly. No, I'm not talking about you and Pei Xian. In fact, on this point, I quite admire Pei Xian. With his status, he can overcome all difficulties and marry you. It's true love. When the topic came back, she was non-committal and gave a wry smile. Jin Yifei looked at her. "Are you unhappy?" She raised her hand to drink again, but found that the wine glass in her hand was already empty. "Waiter." She opened her mouth to recruit a waiter. Jin Yifei took the empty wine glass from her hand, handed it to the waiter who came after hearing the news, and said to him, "Bring a glass of warm water." The waiter took the order and left. Jin Yifei said, "Xiaoling, you can't drink anymore. Do you want the baby in your belly to become an alcoholic in the future?" She was amused by him, so she didn't mention drinking. Warm water was brought up, and Jin Yifei handed it to her. "Waist hangover," he said more words. "Where's Pei Xian? Why are you allowed to run around alone? What if something goes wrong? Let me tell you, if you were pregnant with Boss Li today, my child, he will definitely take good care of you and won't let you come here alone to blow the cold wind." Xiaoling's face turned pale slightly, but Jin Yifei's casual words pierced her heart. She misses Li Lei so much, but unfortunately, she can never go back. Jin Yifei looked at her. "You, Don't you still have Boss Lee in your heart? How is that possible, she said reluctantly. Jin Yifei was a little emotional, and his voice became lower. Boss Lee is so kind to you. Originally, I thought you would be a miracle, breaking the law of show-off in the entertainment industry, forever. Eternally. What a distant word. Jin Yifei, you are too naive, she whispered. Jin Yifei looked at her deeply. Naive? It sounds like you don't believe in eternity, so what do you mean to pay Zion now? We are about to get married. Don't you want to grow old together? Xiaoling did not answer. She turned her head and looked at the silent sea level in the middle of the night. The breeze was blowing her long hair, and the stars were reflected on the sea. The beauty was as beautiful as a jade face. Jin Yifei looked a little distracted. Over the years, he had been among the flowers and had seen countless beauties, many of whom were more beautiful and even stunning than the girl in front of him. However, at this moment, he felt that all the beauties combined were not as attractive as her. It was an indescribable feeling. She was very special. It was a kind of temperament that came from the bones, elegant, soft, just even sadness is so beautiful. You are obviously a lucky person. Jin Yifei shook his head. Because he is a master of flowers, he understands better that it is easy to find a girl with a beautiful face. It is easier to find a girl who truly shines from the inside out. But it is difficult for a child to reach the sky. Such a girl must have experienced many ups and downs and still be able to hold on to the purest beauty in her heart. After being washed away by the wind and frost of time, she looks as good as when we first met. Such a girl is truly blessed. And those who are beautiful, exquisite, fat, and thin, so what if they conquer the country? How many beauties have a miserable life, sacrificing their looks for fame and wealth when they were young, but before they reach 30, they become acrimonious and dishonored. Jin Yifei looked at Xiaoling and sighed, the person who can marry you is also lucky. Xiaoling shook her head slightly. Blessing. Be it her, Li Lei, or even Pei Zion, who is truly happy. Jin Yifei knew nothing about her thoughts, and only said, look, you have been so prosperous along the way, and you are cherished and loved by the two strongest men, Pei Zion and Li Boss, and you are going to marry again soon. Do you know that it is the dream of many girls to become a pampered and wealthy wife? Why can't you be happy and live a good life? He really couldn't figure it out, so he talked for a long time and his mouth was a little dry. Why? Xiaoling didn't know either. The 2 cocktails she had just drank made her a little drunk. Facing the sea breeze, she thought hard and finally uttered 3 words, you don't understand. I don't understand. Jin Yifei almost jumped up, you don't understand. Little girl, what do you know? The most important thing about being a human being is to be happy. He had watched too many TV series recently. What about being a human being? The most important thing is to enjoy yourself in time. Why do you make yourself so miserable? Come on, brother, I will take you to see the world. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 436. Chapter 436 Seeing the World. See the world? Xiaoling looked at him suspiciously, what kind of world is this? Jin Yifei had a devilish look on his face and stretched out his restless paws to grab her hand, you'll know when we get there. Xiaoling slapped his paw away, you speak first. Okay, I said it's not okay. Jin Yifei raised his hands in surrender. Then, his charming peach blossom eyes narrowed with a smile, and he approached her mysteriously, Xiaoling, you haven't opened the casino here yet. Come on, Pei Zion will definitely not take you to that kind of place. Come on, go with your brother. It will be fun and exciting. I don't gamble, Xiaoling said. Who asked you to bet? Jin Yifei said anxiously. I asked you to watch, brother Jin. I will kill everyone. If I win, it's yours. If I lose, I'll just have fun. How about that? You're so loyal. Bar. I'm not short of money, Xiaoling said. Jin Yifei glared at her. We can win or lose millions in one night. She raised the diamond bracelet on her wrist, which was said to be worth 200 million, and shook it at him. The bright light almost blinded Jin Yifei's eyes. Jin Yifei scratched his hair in frustration. Okay, okay, you have money, you are an ant, that's fine. But he changed the topic and still persisted in persuading, aren't you bored? I just passed by the banquet. When I was in the hall, I saw Pei Zion talking to several big guys, and he probably won't be able to get away for a while. Xiaoling, instead of blowing the cold wind on the deck, why don't you go play with me? I want Jing Jing, she smiled, tilted her head and said, and don't ask me who Jing Jing is in front of Li Lei's old friend. She showed her suppressed nature due to various worries during this period. I have recovered a little and am very relaxed. Jing, you ghost, Jin Yifei was about to cry. He jumped on his feet, went crazy, and spun around in circles. He persuaded her earnestly, Miss Ye, Ms. Ye, and Ye, I beg you, come with me to play just a little while, okay? Besides, look he pointed to the distance, over there, there is no single person there, as long as you are alone, you can't use it? How long will it take for you to get chatted up and you won't be annoyed? Xiaoling looked in the direction of his finger, and sure enough, all she could see were pairs or groups of 3 or 5. Occasionally, there are people who are alone, but soon someone comes up to chat, but no one is alone. She thought about it and felt that what Jin Yifei said was indeed true. Before he spoke to her, she also dismissed a few people who tried to talk. Instead of staying here and rejecting people endlessly, it would be better to let him go and have fun. Anyway, she has never been to a casino, so it would be better to go and open her eyes. So, she nodded. Jin Yifei cheered, picked her up and walked forward. Pushing open the door of the casino, Xiaoling found that the inside was very different from what she thought. In her impression, the casino should be like Las Vegas or Macau in the movie, where people from all walks of life gather, the crowds are crowded, and the red-eyed gamblers shout, drink, and swear from time to time. But that is not the case here. Perhaps because the guests on this ship are all distinguished, the environment is quite good. The lights are dim, the music is soft, and the carpet is so soft that you feel like you are sinking into it. Far and near, there are booths scattered here and there, of different sizes, all of which are equally comfortable and luxurious. In many booths, there are people gathered in small groups, mostly young men, wearing famous clothes and watches, holding beautiful female companions in their arms, casually playing cards and sieves, and chatting. Seeing Jin Yifei coming in, many people greeted him, "Hey, Jin Lao, haven't you lost enough just now? Why, this time you abandoned Yanyan and replaced her with a little beauty, just to change your luck." Jin Yifei led Xiaoling back and forth between the booths, while laughing and scolding, Go, I'm lucky, I just made you lose money in custody this time." As he spoke, he squeezed into a booth and sat down with Xiaoling. "Xiaoling, just sit next to me and give me some luck. When I win, my brother will benefit from you." Xiaoling. Honestly, he actively lured her here just to make her luck. As soon as she finished speaking, someone whistled at her, "Who is this little beauty? Jin Lao, please introduce to us." "Okay, you have been so charming recently, you just went out for a walk for a while, and then dumped Yanyan, brought a new one back." Xiaoling frowned. Who do these people think she is? Before she had a seizure, Jin Yifei had already laughed and scolded her again, "Don't be ridiculous, young Master Lu. This is my friend Ye Xingling. She came with the emperor's Peidong. With that, he pulled Xiaoling under the light. La, Xiaoling, sit over here and don't crowd me. Only then did those people see her face clearly. During this period, she was always at the forefront of the news. The news that she was pregnant with Pei Xian's child and that she was about to get married to Pei Xian spread so much that everyone knew that she was untouchable. After Jin Yifei said these words, all the young men stopped looking at the prey and put on serious expressions. They are all human beings, born into wealthy families, and born with their own palaces. They all understand that there is no need to offend the emperor's boss over a woman. Young Master Lu, who had just whistled at Xiaoling, raised his eyebrows and smiled naturally. I'm sorry, Yifei rarely brings friends here and doesn't say hello in advance. I was so offensive just now. Miss Ye, please don't take it to your heart. Xiaoling nodded, accepting his apology. Jin Yifei smiled and smoothed things over. Come on, old Lu, don't be so serious. Xiaoling is not such a narrow-minded person. Then he pointed at them and introduced them to her one by one. This is Lu Heng, who knows the home appliances, and this is from the He group. Third young master He Yuan Hang, this is Fei Ying from Ronghua Real Estate. They all come from famous families. After finally greeting them, a group of people were about to open the cards, when suddenly they heard a sneer coming from the side. Everyone turned around and saw in the dim light of the neighbor's seat, a man wearing a dark blue shiny satin shirt, holding the table with one hand and shaking a cocktail with the other, looking at Xiaoling unscrupulously. His gaze was sharp, like a wolf in the dark night, ready to tear her into pieces at any time. Xiaoling felt uncomfortable when he saw him, but she was confused in her heart. Who is this person? Why does she feel familiar? Jin Yifei frowned tightly, but seemed unwilling to conflict with the man. He just turned sideways without leaving any trace, cleverly blocking Xiaoling behind him. The line of sight was cut off, and the pressure that followed him immediately disappeared. Jin Yifei breathed a sigh of relief and was about to ask everyone to continue playing cards when the man sneered again. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 437. Chapter 437, Chips. This time, it was Lu Heng on the other side of Xiaoling who couldn't sit still. Du Yunfen, what do you mean? It turned out to be Du Yunfen. Xiaoling suddenly recalled that they had met at the Nanshan Horse Racing Club a long time ago. At that time, she and Li Lei had just met, and Li Lei took her to ride horses and met many of his friends. This Du Yunfen is one of them. Later, Li Lei sent her to audition for war, but was stopped by the security guard at the door. He called the director of the production company. That director was also Du Yunfen. Thinking about the past, she felt a little pain in her heart. Du Yunfen acted as if there was no one around. He pushed away the cocktail glass and walked up to her. He put his hands on the table and leaned down to look at her. Ye Xingling, right? What qualifications do you have to sit here? You're just a bitch. The whole place was in an uproar. Xiaoling didn't expect that he would say such words. She was stunned for a moment and reacted for a few seconds before her anger surged up. Du Yunfen, we are not familiar with each other. As long as you are well educated, you shouldn't face an unfamiliar person here. People are talking nonsense. Not familiar, Du Yunfen smiled again, his smile colder than before. Yes, we are indeed not familiar with each other, but you are very familiar with my brother. You must know his name. His name is Li Lei. Her heart hurt even more when she suddenly heard that name. However, on the surface, she remained calm and looked at him coldly. She probably knew that the person who came here was evil. Judging from his demeanor, he was looking for a place for Li Lei. It turned out that they were brothers who had such a close relationship that when one fell in love, the other could stand up for him. However, Li Lei rarely mentioned him to her, nor did he take her to see him on a special trip. For a time, Xiaoling felt even more sad. Lilei, she hadn't had time to know more about him, she hadn't participated in everything in his life, so she missed him forever. The man in front of her smelled of alcohol and looked at her with red eyes. Ling, my brother is blind to fall in love with you. Do you know what he lost for you? He moved 7 times when he fell off the cliff. He barely managed to save his life after 8 operations. The doctor told him to stay in bed for more than half a year, but as for him, he came back to see you as soon as he could get off the ground. In order to prevent you from noticing anything strange and fearing that you would worry, he even beat you before going to see you. Painkiller, but what did you do to him? Are you still a human being? My brother has lived a smooth life and has never been rejected by anyone. Who do you think you are? How dare you treat him like this? Do you know how much effort he put into you and how much money he later spent on Pei Zion? Fight. Some time ago, his wound was inflamed and he was sent to the hospital for emergency treatment. Didn't you know that the old man of the Li family punished him by kneeling in the ancestral hall? The old man felt sorry for him and never said a harsh word since he was a child. But this time, Thunder is furious. Let him kneel in the ancestral hall with serious injuries. Tell him to admit his mistake and get up. But he was so stupid he knelt all day and night without admitting his mistake, and finally passed out alive. Ling, ask yourself, what makes you worthy of him, what makes him worthy of treating you like this? Ling, you are a bitch, bitch. He said a lot in one breath, which made Xiaoling stunned. She had never thought that there was such a thing. Did Li Lei break through the Emperor's gate to see her and get a painkiller injection? Later, his wound became inflamed and he was forced to kneel down by the old man. Even after kneeling in the ancestral hall, he still refused to let go of her. One after another, it was as if they were going to crush her heart. It hurt so much that I can't breathe. She didn't know that things would turn out like this. She originally thought that he had paid enough for her, but what she didn't expect was that it was actually much more than she knew. But even then, in every precious meeting they had, he never said a word to her. Ling, you are not worthy of him at all. Du Yunfan almost poked her nose with his finger. Yunfan, you've drunk too much. Someone pulled him and advised him, let's go, I'll help you to rest. Let go. I'm awake. Du Yunfan threw the man away and glared at Xiaoling more fiercely than before. Ling, you are just a prostitute, you are not qualified to talk about relationships. Do you like money? Well, you can go with whoever pays more. Okay. He pushed a stack of chips in front of her. Is this enough money to buy you one night? Yunfan, you are crazy. Miss Ye is Pei Zion's person. Miss Ye is pregnant with Dongpei's child. What should I do if something goes wrong? Yunfan, calm down. Don't be impulsive. Everyone tried to persuade them. They were really scared. Pei Zion was famous for being tyrannical and unreasonable and demanding revenge. If something happened to his woman and children here, he could take revenge on everyone present. People and their families. Let's go find Pei Zion. Someone secretly winked at his companion. If you don't want to die, don't stay there. Someone ran away in a hurry next to me. At the center of the storm, Xiaoling sat quietly. She looked at the large push of chips on the table, the cold crystal texture flashing under the light, giving her an unreal illusion. The people around her couldn't pull Du Yunfan away, and gradually became quiet, with all kinds of eyes wandering back and forth between her and him in deathly silence. Xiaoling has never been humiliated like this in public, whether in this life or in her previous life. However, she was not angry in her heart. Du Yunfan was right, she was just not worthy of Li Lei and deserved to be ridiculed in front of her like this today. How can she be as embarrassed as she was when he tried his best to save her? Why don't you say anything? Du Yunfan stared at her and sneered, too few. Is it enough to add these? He pushed over a pile of chips, all of which were of large denominations. If converted into RMB, they could fill a room. Xiaoling began to envy him. No, she was jealous of him, jealous that he could stand here and stand up for Lilei wantonly and arrogantly, but she would never have the opportunity to do something for Lilei openly. She was in great pain, but the expression on her face was even lighter. Yasin Ling, it seems that you are really greedy, Du Yunfan sneered, pushing piles of chips one after another. Is it enough? Not enough? You are just thinking that you are rich. I'm telling you, I'm going to book you today. The chips in front of me have piled up into a hill. Du Yunfan swept all the chips on the table in front of her, and many of them fell to the ground because he used too much force. Under his increasingly excessive humiliation and everyone's strange gazes, Xiaoling unexpectedly remembered what Jin Yifei had said before. In the casino here, one person could win or lose millions in one night, and she didn't know how many chips the chips swept in front of her would add up to. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 438. Chapter 438, Furious. I don't know why, but I am looking forward to it. Looking forward to it, when he found out that he had piled all the casino chips in front of her and she still wouldn't follow him, would he become so angry that he would just pull out a gun or something and kill her? She had sworn not to commit suicide, but if he did, it would be none of her business. Then I thought about the child in my belly. It was such a pity that she could not die yet. She habitually placed her hands on her soft belly, protecting it with a gentle gesture. Du Yunfan was still roaring something, but Xiaoling could no longer listen. She watched quietly as he threw piles of chips in front of her. The entire casino was alerted and came to watch. Some people began to persuade him, but due to his identity, they did not dare to actually take him away. Until, suddenly, a fist hit him hard in the face. The crowd screamed and dispersed. The man who suddenly broke in didn't say anything. He punched Du Yunfan one after another, knocking him to the ground like a violent storm. But the man didn't give up. Like an angry lion, he continued to beat him to death. Du Yunfan, on the other hand, came to his senses after a brief daze and struggled with the man. Dongdu. Dongpei. Stop fighting, the casino manager came to persuade him hurriedly. Xiaoling then saw clearly who the attacker was. It turned out that it was Pei Ziyan who had arrived. When did he come? Didn't he never play in casinos? Xiaoling stood up and looked at Pei Ziyan. His current appearance was strange to her, like a raging lion that had lost its mind and roared to tear the enemy into pieces. The fists hit Du Yunfan's face and body one after another, and the punches penetrated the flesh, and there was a dull sound of blunt blows. She even heard the sound of bones breaking. Only then did I realize that he had been merciful when he imprisoned and tortured her. The casino manager was so anxious that he called 2 security guards to pull Pei Ziyan away. However, Pei Ziyan's fighting skills were trained with top personal trainers since he was a child. In addition, he was so angry that he threw away the people who tried to stop him. Stop the fight, if you continue to fight, someone will be killed, the casino manager shouted anxiously. The faces of the onlookers gradually changed. Some people hesitated, as if they wanted to start a fight, but in the end they were put off by Pei Ziyan's furious and crazy posture. Jin Yifei took Xiaoling's wrist. Xiaoling, please persuade him quickly, if this continues, someone will really die. Xiaoling stumbled forward. Pei Ziyan, stop fighting. Pei Ziyan ignored Du Yunfan and beat him to death. Du Yunfan's body had curled up into a ball of shrimps, holding his head with his hands, trying to minimize the damage, but even Xiaoling could see that even if he was like this, he wouldn't be able to last long. The Du family's bodyguards arrived and rushed up. At first they tried to pull Pei Ziyan back, but they couldn't. During the push, a bodyguard punched him with a heavy blow. Pei Xian groaned, but ignored him and still punched Du Yunfan. The bodyguard panicked and couldn't pull him away, so he had to attack him with all his strength, but Pei Xian was still crazy and just beat Du Yunfan to death. Within a few rounds, Pei Xian also suffered a loss. Xiaoling's expression turned pale. If this continues, something serious might really happen. Seeing the opponent's bodyguard's fist hitting Pei Xian again, she didn't have time to think about it, and he had already rushed towards him, trying to start a fight. When she was in the orphanage in her previous life, she was also a good fighter. It was not a problem for a little girl to fight against a group of big boys, not to mention that she later learned some self-defense skills from Pei Xian. She thought it shouldn't be difficult to start a fight. But she forgot that she was currently in Ye Xingling's body, and she was still pregnant. Her movements were clumsy, and her physique and motor nerves could not keep up. Instead of pulling away from the men who were fighting in a pile, she received a fist, which hit her shoulder hard. She groaned and broke into a cold sweat. Xiaoling, Pei Xian realized something was wrong, let go of Du Yunfan, and held her in his arms. Immediately afterwards, with murderous intent, he rushed towards the bodyguard who accidentally hit her. "Stop fighting," Xiaoling endured the pain and held him tightly. "Pei Xian, why are you crazy?" He said nothing, but still wanted to attack the bodyguard. But in this short moment, the surrounding crowd and security guards had already moved, quickly protecting Du Yunfan and separating them at the other end. Xiaoling held on to Pei Xian, gasping for breath from the pain in her shoulders. "Take me to heal, I feel like the bones are broken." Pei Xian glanced coldly in Du Yunfan's direction for the last time, picked her up, and strode out. He carried her back to the room and put her on the dark blue silk satin bed. Then, he took off her shirt, exposing her injured shoulder. On the shoulder, there was a large deep purple-red bruise, which looked shocking on the pale skin. Even Xiaoling herself was shocked. Pei Xian's face turned even more ugly, and he gently touched her wound with his hand, carefully. She took a breath in pain, and his hand immediately moved away. "It hurts." Xiaoling nodded and looked at him with some fear. He said gently, "Be patient for a while and let me see if there are any injured bones." As he said that, he stretched out his hand more carefully than before to check her injuries. Xiaoling did not dare to move or breathe, and allowed him to examine her body carefully. Her clothes were half taken off, revealing her smooth skin that had not been exposed in front of him for a long time. His breath was so close to her, brushing against her face, and his slightly rough fingers moved back and forth on her skin, evoking a crazy feeling, not only the sharp pain when touching the wound, but also the sharp pain when touching the wound. There are those past events that are being overturned little by little, and the darkness and fear that seep into the soul seem to be forever inescapable. It seems like a century has passed. He finally straightened up. Fortunately, no bones were injured. "However, just to be on the safe side, I will take you to take a photo after returning home tomorrow." Xiaoling breathed a long sigh of relief and nodded. He looked at her face. "Does it hurt a lot?" Xiaoling was startled and shook her head hurriedly. It wasn't that it hurt, she just didn't know how to face his touch. Even if she knew that he was just checking her wounds, even if she knew that he would not hurt her at this moment, some fear had become instinctive and penetrated deep into her bones. He said, "Don't rush up to me again. What if I get hurt?" Xiaoling said, "Yeah, but in fact, she knew better than anyone else that if there was a next time, she would probably rush forward. It's really despairing to think about it. Even if she is so afraid of him, she still can't let him go when she sees that he is in danger. Is this a hangover from Stockholm at that time? She does not know." Pei Xian turned around and went out, making a phone call to the guest room outside. After a while, he came in with a bottle of medicine. "I'll give you medicine." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Sci-fi. Chapter 439. Chapter 439 Regret. He applied the ointment little by little to Xiaoling's injured area. The ointment was very cooling, and the burning pain in her injured area was relieved. Under the dim crystal light, she looked at his face quietly. There was also a bruise on the corner of his lip, and some dried blood. He looked very different from usual. The appearance of gentleness and calmness had been torn away, and he was violent, embarrassed and fierce. This is the first time Xiaoling has seen him out of control like this. Even when they had a fight and he punished her from above, he was still under control. It's not like now, no matter what, just like a young boy who has just started to fall in love, fighting for his first girlfriend. I felt a little trance before I realized it. What are you looking at? Pei Ziyan asked after giving her the medicine. Xiaoling looked away. It's nothing. He stopped asking, laid her body down and covered her with the quilt. Go to bed early. What about you? Xiaoling asked. Is your injury okay? He was startled, and his expression softened. It's not a problem, it's just a skin injury. Then you need to apply medicine. She only received one punch from the other party. He must have been injured more seriously after receiving so many punches. Pei Ziyan said, okay. After saying that, he walked to the small table next to the bed where the ointment was placed. He first treated the wounds on the corners of his lips and cheeks, then turned his back to her, took off his suit and shirt, revealing a toned and lean body. Real muscles come. Xiaoling turned over and didn't look at him. She is as familiar with every inch of his skin as she is with herself. Every inch of joy and pain is so unforgettable that even if a long time passes, she cannot remain indifferent to it, but can only avoid it. However, on the other side of the bed, there was a floor-to-ceiling glass window, and through the gauze curtain, it was he who was reflected vaguely. Xiaoling wanted to close her eyes, but she was looking at the blurry shadow on the glass window and couldn't look away. He skillfully applied medicine to his chest, waist, and lower abdomen. There were more injuries than she thought, and the more she looked at them, the sadder she felt. Finally, after finishing applying it on the front of her body, she saw him raising his hand, as if he wanted to touch the depths of her shoulders and back, but failed to touch it after several attempts. So, he put down the medicine bottle, picked up his clothes, and prepared to put it on his body. Where? Xiaoling finally couldn't help but turned around and sat up from the bed. Wait a minute, you still haven't given good medicine. He probably didn't expect that she would turn back and her arm holding the clothes would stop in mid-air. However, at that moment, Xiaoling's words paused, and her eyes fell firmly on a certain point on his left arm. This is. He covered it with his clothes. It's nothing. Xiaoling climbed out of bed, held his hand, and opened his clothes. His forearm was densely covered with many wounds, as if they had been cut with a razor blade or something. The cuts were sharp and neat, old and new, layered on top of each other. What's this? He took his arm out of her hand, put on his clothes, and said nothing. Pei Ziyan, Xiaoling looked at him angrily, her voice trembling. Tell me, how did you do it? She clearly remembered that until the last night before her death, he hugged her to sleep naked. There are no such scars on his arms. So, after that? What happened after that? Why do you have such wounds on your hands? She tried her best to suppress the tremor in her voice. When she returned to him after being reborn, she had actually never taken a good look at him, so it was only now that she discovered that he actually had such horrific scars on his body. This scared her more than the countless wounds from punches and kicks, because, vaguely, she knew what it was. I still remember the year he imprisoned her. When she couldn't stand it any longer, she tried to commit suicide by slicing her wrist with a sharp piece of porcelain. It had roughly the same effect. No, it wasn't as neat and cruel as that. His arms were filled with calm madness. Pei Ziyan still didn't answer, but turned around and said, "It's very late, go to sleep." Xiaoling looked at his back. "Pei Ziyan, don't you want me to know anything? Whether it's Wang Jingguan, the fight with Tianyi, or the injury on my hand now, Pei Ziyan, what do you think of me?" His figure was slightly stiff. Xiaoling said, "Are you raising me just to relieve your boredom? You never care about what I think and always decide everything unilaterally. Do you know that I will also be worried?" "I didn't raise you to relieve my boredom," he said in a low voice without looking back. "What's that for?" she yelled at him, "tell me." He was silent for a long time. When she gradually became desperate and thought he would not answer, he finally spoke, "Xiaoling, from the first day I brought you home, I have made up my mind not to let you suffer any harm. Grievance. The outside world is too complicated. I won't tell you many things, not because I don't care about you, but because I care about you too much." Xiaoling didn't expect that he would say such words. She was caught off guard and was stunned on the spot. Yes, he has indeed taken good care of her over the years. If she had not disobeyed him later, she guessed, she could have lived a happy and carefree life under his wings. But, is this love? No, at least it's not the love she wants. "Pei Ziyan, if you care about me, tell me the truth." Xiaoling looked at his back, her voice hoarse, "Tell me, how did you do your arm and what happened?" He slightly raised his scarred arm and stared down. Xiaoling urged, "Pei Ziyan. At that time, you fell from the stage," he said very slowly, as if he was restraining his emotions. "Later, I always dreamed about you at night. Sometimes I thought about you too much, so I used a knife. Make a cut on your arm, watch the blood flow out, and think about how painful it will be when you fall." His voice changed slightly, as if he was crying, and stopped without warning. Xiaoling stopped asking, her heart seemed to be crumpled into a ball, and she was in unbearable pain. "It's really strange, he hurt her so miserably in the last life, she should be happy and reconcile her hatred, but why, she is even sadder." The atmosphere in the room was suffocating. Xiaoling turned around, opened the door, and walked out. On the deck, the night was already very deep. Stars were twinkling in the black velvet night, and the smell of sea water was carried in the wind. Xiaoling hugged her knees and sat on the edge of the deck. The sound of waves sounded like it was drowning people. He regretted it. After she paid the price with her life, he finally regretted it. So, now that he has recovered her, he treats her so carefully. But the price is so tragic. Xiaoling thought about the happy past that had come to naught due to the sudden marriage more than 3 years ago. When she first learned that Wang Jingguan was going to marry him, she was so shocked, angry and panicked, as if the sky was falling. Same as coming down. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 440. Chapter 440, photographed by the paparazzi. Not to mention the hellish years of being imprisoned by him. At that time, she was making a lot of noise, doing all the nonsense and being unreasonable, just to let him know how much pain she was feeling. Now, he knows. Her tears fell silently on the deck. A coat was gently draped over her body, the soft woolen texture carrying a familiar smell. "Xiaoling," it was Pei Ziyan's voice, gentle and hoarse, "it's cold outside, come back with me, and we'll have a good life from now on." Since this period of time, he has said many times that he will live well. Xiaoling originally didn't believe that they could live a good life, but at this moment, looking at him who had suffered so much and sacrificed so much for her, she suddenly thought in despair, is this life? When I came back to him, I hated him for being cruel, but I also felt sorry for him. Since you can't escape, let's try and live a good life. She no longer loses her temper with him. During dinner, she would chat about what she had done that day, which artist had released a new song recently, and where the flowers were blooming particularly beautifully. Whenever this happens, he will listen carefully, as if she is talking about something important. His eyes are soft, happy, and satisfied. He will take time to accompany her to visit maternal and child stores. Just like an ordinary couple, they choose some necessary supplies for the baby. The small clothes and crib are all in her favorite color, pink and tender, and extremely sweet and princess style. Pei Ziyan asked her, what should she do if she was born a boy? She lowered her head and touched her belly, and said somewhat willfully, I want a girl. Pei Ziyan smiled fondly. Does she know how many women are rushing to marry him and wish they could have a boy for their first child? She was the only one left. She wanted to give up the good eldest son and heir, but she always wanted to have a daughter. However, she has no control over whether she will have a boy or a girl, and it will be useless no matter how much preparation she makes. He watched indulgently as she bought a lot of supplies for a little girl. When he was about to go out to sign the bill, he took the time to tell the accompanying bodyguard, purchase the same supplies for another baby boy. Don't let Madam know about it. Although they have not been officially married yet, he has already called her Madam in front of his servants. The bodyguard knew that his boss valued her and her unborn child, so he responded respectfully. Pei Ziyan then gently supported Xiaoling and walked out of the glass door of the mother and baby store. There were paparazzi waiting outside, so I took a few snapshots of them unexpectedly. Xiaoling's eyes narrowed slightly due to the flash, and Pei Ziyan looked a little unhappy and signaled the bodyguard to go find the paparazzi to settle the score. Xiaoling pulled his arm and said, forget it, she has been a star for 2 lifetimes, so she has encountered relatively few candid photos. She really has to worry about where to start. What's more, now that she is pregnant, it is better to do less than to do more, so as to accumulate virtue for the baby in her belly. Pei Ziyan then gave up. She has become much calmer recently, and she is also soft-hearted. She occasionally sheds tears while watching a soap opera at home, and Pei Ziyan is helpless. A thought suddenly came to his mind. She was so sentimental. Could it be that she was really pregnant with a girl? For a moment, he was frightened by his own guess. No, his Xiaoling was going to give birth to the eldest son of the Pei family. How could a girl do that? When the gender of the child can be found out in 2 months, you must accompany her as soon as possible. He made a decision secretly. The paparazzi over there was quite bold. Seeing that the bodyguard didn't chase them away, he simply found a good angle and took several pictures in a grand manner. Pei Ziyan felt a little angry again. He lowered his head and looked at the girl next to him who exuded the glory of the Virgin and refused to let him chase her away. Suddenly, his heart moved, and he felt revengeful. He pulled her over, raised her fair and smooth cheeks, and looked at her a kiss like a dragonfly on the lips. I didn't dare to kiss him for fear that she would fall out. Hey, you, even so, Xiaoling stared at her in shock, stroking the corners of her lips with one hand, her face full of accusations. What are you doing? He did not explain, and turned to look at the paparazzi. The little boy was so excited that he took several photos. From his angle, it looked like he gave her a real kiss. I've made it, I've made it. Xiao Ziazi muttered excitedly while taking pictures. Wow, haha, fellow idiots, you all go to the emperor. I am the smartest and know how to go to a high-end maternal and child store. This is Pei, the first kiss photo of the boss and Yexin Ling, exclusive, huge exclusive. He originally just wanted to try his luck to see if he could take some photos of Yexin Ling visiting a maternal and child store, but he didn't expect that he would be so lucky. Even the great Pei Ziyan accompanies her for shopping and comes with such great benefits. It is definitely a show of affection that kills singles instantly. The little boy was so excited that he forgot everything he was doing. When he saw the two people over there looking over, he excitedly waved to them and blew them a big kiss before turning around and running away. Xiaoling's face turned dark. Pei Xian's voice was very gentle, I asked you to drive people away, but you didn't drive them away. So, is this how he takes revenge? Xiaoling was so drunk that she looked at him sternly, you are not allowed to sneak attack me again. If you frighten the baby in your belly, can you afford to pay for it? Then let's have another one. He was still very gentle. No, Xiaoling was really angry, did you hear that? You. No. Accurate. Again. Sneak. Attack. Me. Word by word, gritted teeth. Pei Xian's eyes were dim and he didn't respond. He just helped her get into the back seat of the Rolls-Royce. The sudden kiss just now was meant to retaliate against her and declare sovereignty in public, but it was also a test to see how far she had accepted him and whether she could get closer to him. The drunkenness that night was just an accident. Normally, she was still reluctant to let him touch her. Pei Xian wants to know, is she living a good life with him for the sake of her children, or have they been able to gradually start over? Unfortunately, the result of this trial disappointed him. Although he was very reluctant to admit it, his reason told him that Xiaoling stayed with him for the sake of his children. She still did not fall in love with him again, and he still failed miserably on the battlefield of love. In the Rolls-Royce car, the atmosphere was a bit depressing along the way. Xiaoling also felt it. As soon as she returned to the villa, she hurriedly got out of the car and locked herself in the workroom. She began to worry. Now that there was a child in the way, he would not do anything too outrageous to her for the time being. What if she gave birth to a child and nursed back her health? How long can he go without touching her? She was extremely frightened when she thought of this. She looked in the mirror, looking at her still flat belly, and said to herself that those things that were too far away were all unfounded worries. Now, as long as she can protect her child from being born safely and her identity is not exposed, she is already doing very well. End of this chapter.